Hey VC, how's it going? Hope everyone's staying warm out there. I know I'm trying my best here. It's only about, yesterday was like in the teens here, Fahrenheit, which is a little unheard of for where I live. But, you know, staying warm and it's a good excuse to stay inside and just listen to records, you know. Even though I do enjoy going out to dig, it's a little cold to go anywhere. So, obviously this is my continuation, my top 100. This will be, we're getting into the top 50 now. This is 50 through 41, as you can tell by the title of this video. And, you know, good selection here, good, we're getting into the real meat and potatoes here of my, my core music, I don't know what you would call that, I guess, you know, just my favorites, obviously. But, anyway, just real quick, wanted to say a big thank you to the VC, for everyone subscribing, old and new, everyone who comments, everyone who I interact with on the VC on a regular basis. A few shout outs, Not Enough Records, Tales from the Crate, Vinyl in the Van, Jeff Kempen. I really enjoy Flipside CT and Baraka P Dub and all you guys. Andy's Vinyl Den, thank you. Rob Panix, thanks for always being there from the beginning. Just, you know, supporting my channels, it really means a lot. Anyway, enough gushing, we'll get into it now. A good selection of like classics and personal favorites that maybe not a lot of people have heard of in here. But starting off with I think a very well-known classic is The Doors' 1967 debut, self-titled, I guess. Just one of those, I don't know if you could call it a flawless album. I mean, I'm not exactly crazy about, honestly, 20th Century Fox is a little cheesy for me, but also Alabama song is okay, but the rest of it is great. Obviously, you got Light My Fire, Break On Through the Other Side, The Crystal Ship, great version of Backdoor Man, and I think one of my favorite songs of all time has to be the closer, The End. Not only for its use in one of my probably top 10 movies, Apocalypse Now, but just like that song evokes such a sheer sense of like dread and kind of psychedelic terror. It's like a bad trip. Not that I would know, but anyways, you all know this one. Come on, this is number 50. It has to be up there. 49 is maybe a little more controversial. It's Death Cab for Cutie, Transatlanticism, however you want to say that. This record's from 2003, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I don't know how you guys feel about Death Cab or Ben Gibbard in general, or like indie rock in general. But if you're a fan of like kind of alternatives slash maybe indie emo light, if that's a thing you can describe it as, emotional, heavy lyric based indie rock is what you could call this. I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a concept album, but the album does flow very well. It has kind of a loose theme about, you know, just kind of a typical romance and breakups and things. Just, if you never heard this, just check it out. I think you'd probably find it enjoyable. And Death Cab has lots of great albums. They have some kind of mediocre albums, but I don't think they've ever made a necessarily bad album. At worst, I think they've made like 6 out of 10 or 5 out of 10, just kind of average records at worst. At best, they make a 10 out of 10 thing like this, or Plans, which just barely didn't make my top 100. I would say that's in the top 110 or so. There's Plans, Narrow Stairs, just a great band. I really love them. 48 here is, again, another classic. You will all know this one. This is Bowie, Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars. Do I really need to describe the track list on this one? I mean, every single track on here probably makes it onto best of David Bowie compilations. If I had to pick a favorite, it's probably either I'm actually a big fan of Soul Love. I mean, that's one of the more understated songs I feel like on this record, but Soul Love is great. Moon Age Daydream, obviously. I skipped 5 years. I love that. I love that song. That's one of the best of his whole catalog, I think. Starman, obviously. Lady Stardust, Ziggy Stardust, and Suffragette City. Rock and Roll Suicide is just a great double header to close the record. This is, you know, I think whenever people think of David Bowie, they think of this period, sort of like his classic glam rock period with, you know, Mick Ronson on guitar, and sort of his, obviously his glam, this, or like Aladdin Sane, or Hunky Dory, which, you know, from Hunky Dory through, oh, what's that one? Aladdin Sane. I'm not the biggest fan of, like, I don't think Pinups really counts. I'm not the biggest fan of Diamond Dogs. But that stretch of records through the 70s for him is one of the best, like, discographies of any artist. I mean, those are mostly, like, 9 out of 10 or 10 out of 10 records, for me anyway. This is an original, or maybe not an original first press, but, like, early 70s pressing on RCA, you know, the kind of crappy Dynaflex vinyl. I'd actually be kind of interested to pick up a reissue of that, or maybe some higher quality vinyl, because, you know, Dynaflex is kind of hit and miss. I mean, if it's clean and it's not warped, then it plays okay. I'd still be interested to see if I could get some better mastering out of a reissue. Oh man, I always do this. This is 47. I always lose count. 47 is a band that I take my channel name from. I don't know if all of you know that, but this band Tiger's Jaw, they have a single called My Friend Morrissey. I talked about that. I made a kind of video showing my collection of Tiger's Jaw stuff. I had everything that they've ever released on vinyl, and I think I still do. But this is my favorite album of theirs. This is their second to most recent. This is the last one with the 5-piece lineup of Tiger's Jaw. They kind of not broke up, but 60% of the members left to, like, pursue other projects or finish school and things like that. So there's only 2 out of the original 5 members left, and they just put out an album last year that I actually really enjoyed. But this is the last one of the classic 5-piece lineup, 2014. This came out my senior year of high school. This and another one that I'll talk about pretty shortly here came out that year. And you know how it is with records coming out then, kind of forming your musical identity. If they really resonate with you and you can identify with them, then they become kind of lifelong favorites. But kind of cool thing about the packaging, I don't know if you can see it that well, but this is kind of embossed, because Brianna, the keyboard player in this band, does all the artwork. She made an actual 12 by 12 like cross-stitched thing for the front and back cover. So she actually cross-stitched this whole track listing, and it's kind of embossed on here, so it kind of feels like a cross-stitch knitted thing. And there's several different colors of this. The color that I have is this kind of teal or kind of turquoise blue. It's just like opaque. Pretty neat. I've had a dark green translucent version of that, and I've kind of been eyeing this white with like maroon splatter version. It would kind of match the artwork pretty well. If I see that, I'll pick it up. But yeah, definitely check this out. This is one of my favorite records of the past 10 years. Again, getting into another classic. I'm realizing that these are kind of stacked like classic, modern, classic, modern. That was unintentional, but 46 here is In the Court of the Crimson King by King Crimson. This lineup here, this band, is a bit of a super group. Obviously Robert Fripp, you got McDonald and Giles, you got Greg Legg doing bass and vocals. Just kind of a dream prog lineup, basically. There's hints of Psych on here, maybe a little bit of Freak Out. 21st Century Schizoid Man, I think, is a perfect kind of album opener. And, you know, you've got I Talk to the Wind, Epitaph, Moonchild, and The Court of the Crimson King, which I think is kind of a perfect album closer. And kind of, whenever I want to listen to a prog song, or a prog record in general, this is kind of one that I lean towards, obviously. But that's kind of, The Court of the Crimson King, the song, the title track on here is quintessential prog for me. It's just kind of what I think of in my head whenever someone mentions the word prog. And that's kind of what I look for in prog. I know a lot of groups kind of get maybe a little jazzy. I don't know if I necessarily always want something a little more straightforward, but you know what I'm talking about. That's just kind of the basic blueprint of a perfect prog song, in my opinion. Now, blueprint for our perfect post-rock album, which again is a little more of a modern one. This came out like 2000, maybe 2001, and I'm totally going to pronounce the name of this band wrong. Everyone always does, but I think it's Sigur Rós. Sigur Rós. They're an Icelandic band. I'm sure you've heard about them. They're a fantastic post-rock, kind of guitar-based, semi-ambient, like mostly instrumental group. And lots of times they'll sing in English sometimes, they'll sing in Icelandic lots of times, and a lot of times they'll sing in sort of a made-up nonsense language of just like random syllables and consonants and vowels. But anyway, this album is, I think, just called like parentheses or untitled. And each song is untitled. There's like 8 tracks on here that are each without a title, so you just kind of have to go by their number, you know, 1 through 8. But this is just a beautiful record. I mean, in terms of music, I would say it's somehow one of the most emotional things I've ever listened to without being able to understand a word of it. And really what sells it on that level of emotion is just the sheer beauty of the music that they've made here. You know, kind of lengthy tracks. I see the CD a lot. I mean, this is an original press. This got a reissue recently, so they're not impossible to find. But the CD I see all the time for kind of like nothing. CD has really good packaging as well. If you see this around for like, you know, $4 or $5, definitely pick it up, check it out. So you don't have to invest in. I think the reissue is like $30, but you know, just a cool one to listen to. If I can make a recommendation to you guys, that would be probably the one I would suggest to check out. And all of these I think are great to check out, obviously, but I think a lot of you would really enjoy that anyway. Now, what was I going to say about that? I totally forget. Moving on. This is 44. This is one of my favorite Neil Young albums, On the Beach. There's more Neil Young ahead in my list, so don't worry if your favorite hasn't made it on the list yet, because it probably will pretty soon. This is an original press with the in their printed inside jacket with like the floral thing, tan reprise label. Really what sells me on this record is the B-side. I mean, Ambulance Blues I think is probably if I had to pick a single favorite Neil Young track, it'd probably be Ambulance Blues. I'm not the biggest fan of the opener, Walk On. It's a little too straightforward for this period of Neil Young, you know, what he refers to as his Ditch trilogy of kind of trying to break away from the mainstream, which is maybe a little bit of a hipster move on his part, but in hindsight, he made some fantastic music during this period in the mid-70s. See the Sky About to Rain is great. Revolution Blues, all the tracks that end with the word blues are great. You got Revolution Blues, Vampire Blues, and Ambulance Blues. Motion Pictures is a fantastic song. The title track, On the Beach, is fantastic. For the Turnstiles is kind of weird, but also fantastic in its own way. And yeah, I'm just a big fan of his Ditch period. Maybe to a later, or to a lesser extent, Time Fades Away. Eh, but you know what I'm saying. It's just, you can't really go wrong with Neil Young during the mid-70s. Which I guess this would make that, this next one 43. This is the Hotelier, Home Like No Place Is There. Straight emo revival. This is one that I sent to Andrew as VCLT. My copy here is this dark, transparent red with like a little bit of black in there. I picked this up at a show. I saw them in Dallas in 2014. I talked about this record also vaguely in my soundtrack for your live contest for Andrew's channel, so that's why I wanted to send him a copy of this, because it was one from that video that I made for his contest. But you know, besides how it relates to me personally, again, with this came out my senior year of high school, and so you know, it becomes like a formative thing in that time period. But besides that whole personal aspect of it, this record I think is one of the best non-concept concept albums I've heard, in the sense that it doesn't, you know, it doesn't play like a play or anything, or like a coherent movie, but definitely has a great overarching theme of kind of friends and family and people you know from home, and kind of the struggles everybody's going through, and kind of relating that back to the singer's personal struggles with like maybe mental health and stability and things like that. But I definitely really enjoy this record. I actually really love the artwork too. And there's an insert in here that has some really great photography. Show it real quick. Kind of I think that's the neighborhood at night. There's another house there. Yeah, I really enjoy this record. Obviously, if it's in my top 50. And just kind of rambling now, but yeah, check it out. Hotelier. 52. Now this is one that kind of fits in here on a bit of technicality. I don't know if you would call it. No, I'll just show it. It's an album. It's the Smile Sessions by the Beach Boys. Now it does have a bit of bonus material on the last side, but the first three sides are basically this came out in like 2011, and you might know Brian Wilson. You know, he completed his long unfinished album Smile in 2004, which I'd love to pick this up on vinyl, this version. But he completely re-recorded everything, and it turned out like this. It's Brian Wilson's Smile, and then in 2011 they kind of took that template and took the original masters and recordings and things that he made back in 66 and 67, I think, and rearranged them and finished the original recordings into basically a admittedly kind of rough outline of what Smile would have been. Some of the songs are definitely unfinished. The opener of side 2, Wonderful, just kind of cuts off what feels like 2/3 of the way through. I feel like there could be another verse, and there definitely is another verse in the final Brian Wilson version. But for the most part, it's all there. You know, everything that was finished. You know, obviously the opening with Our Prayer into G and Heroes and Villains, and the sort of not spoken word, but sort of quirky little interludes in the middle of songs, kind of breaking them up into parts. Those all made it in. I really love the way it turned out, honestly. So if you've heard Smiley Smile, which I think is a far inferior album to this, obviously, this is up there with the best of the 60s, in my opinion. Anything that came out from anybody in the 60s. I like it better than like Odyssey and Oracle. I like it better than most of the Doors catalog. Actually, I guess all of the Doors catalog, but for pure kind of psychedelic Americana, actually, I mean, there's not really, instead of being like an Eastern influence, there's like a definite Western American influence. I mean, there's banjo on here, for crying out loud, and there's a song called Cabanescence about having like a home on the range and things like that. But pure American psychedelic Beach Boys from the great Brian Wilson, and there's a group again. And now, last one here is 41, another sort of modern classic in my opinion, is Fleet Fox's second album, Helplessness Blues. Again, I think this also came out in 2011. This is on Sub Pop. This can be found pretty much anywhere for probably like 18 bucks or less, and I really recommend picking this up. It's really, Sub Pop always makes a good product for a good price. They press their vinyl really well. They really care about quality, it seems, and it's pretty straightforward packaging. You know, black vinyl, simple labels. Comes with like a poster and an insert and download card and all the things you would want. Anyway, musically, you could just call them maybe folk rock in the sense of, in the same vein as, I don't know, influence from everybody from like Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young to like Simon and Garfunkel, and maybe on their newest record some more of the krautrock or psychedelic type things. They did some more things with interesting time signatures, but on this one is for the most part pretty straightforward indie rock. Just again, kind of a loose concept, more of like an overarching theme that goes really well with the whole thing. Into kind of finding your place, which I'm kind of going through a lot of this right now. Deciding just kind of like what you want to be, which I think a lot of people go through their mid-20s. Just, you know, kind of feeling not helpless, which I guess is, you know, where the title comes from. Feeling helpless with your own life and unsure or unconfident of what you want to do. But there's sort of a happy ending. It ends on an up note. And this album is kind of a journey. Again, not a concept, but you can kind of feel a progression through a theme with this, and I think the track list flows really well. If I had to recommend one song to check out, I guess it would be the second one, Bedouin Dress. You might also recognize a certain someone here, a little guy known as Father John Misty. He played drums for this band, for this record, and this tour and everything. Just kind of a fun fact. Anyway, yeah. I'm at kind of a loss for words for this record for some reason, but I really highly recommend that one. And that's it for this part. Next one, I'm getting into the top 40. It's only going to get better and better from here, I think. You'll see all your favorites, probably. Some of them, I think, will not be very surprising to people how high up they are. I think you guys will probably really enjoy my top 40 and top 10 especially. I'm really excited to get there. It's going to be really hard to make that video not an hour long, because I could probably talk about all those records for so long. But yeah, that's it. Thanks again to everybody. Thanks if you made it this far through. Thanks if you just skimmed through to see the album covers, to ignore my rambling. And just thanks for all the support, guys. I'm really enjoying the VC right now. Again, I'm a little bit behind on videos, but I'm catching up quickly. And you guys are just doing a fantastic job as well, all of you. Good job out there. I'll see you on the next one. See you. Oh, I was going to do my vinyl tag this week. That ended up falling through for various reasons. But I'll do that as quickly as possible before it gets into February too quickly here. I don't want to kind of miss the train on that one. But look forward to that really soon. That'll probably be my very next video. I say that, and no promises, but that will hopefully be my next video. Anyways, thank you guys again. Just take care. Stay warm.